think one of the biggest fears that I had when my first daughter was born was, am I going to be a good dad? I think I knew I could be kind of a fun dad. I think I knew I could probably provide for my family, but would I be a consistent, really good model? And the reason why I asked that question, even though I had a pretty good model in my dad, and I had parents that loved each other, and they were good, strong Christians, and I was already a Christian at the time, I was already a pastor, I was married to a wonderful woman, and when we were having our first child, the doubt that came in the back of my mind came because through my ministry time and through the first 5 years of my marriage, before we had our daughter, Catherine, I realized how selfish I was and how much of that still was in my heart. And it shows because in all the petty fights you have with your spouse, usually it's based and it comes from selfishness on one side. And it's always like, man, I always feel like I'm giving up more or I'm laying down more. And then when something else comes, a child comes into the picture, what you hear from so many people who walk a little bit in front of you is that you have absolutely no life after that. You had no life here, but now it's all about the kid and both parents. And it's true. And now I'm coming to the light at the end of the tunnel. My girls are growing up. No, I'm kidding. It'll still be about them, I'm sure. But the thing that they don't sometimes tell you is, it's not a dying to yourself that's bad, that where you lose yourself, but it's actually learning about selflessness that causes such deep joy and maturity to happen in your life. But the problem is that I had a misunderstanding, even as a pastor, even as a Christian, even with all the experiences that I had, about what it meant to be a father. And I think right now, and especially in our society right now, there is so much confusion in the general world, in the world as a whole, about what it means to be a man. We have so much confusion about gender identity, about just everything. And there's so many things to get into, but there's so much confusion, and there's just everything. Just be who you are and be whatever you want to be, and all these things. But I believe that God had a specific design. And the thing is that yes, there's plenty of room for our uniquenesses and our differences to shine through, but there's certain aspects that we all need to really have to be healthy men, to be healthy women. And I think this message is geared towards the men, but it's important for the women because without knowing it, what I find is most women gravitate when they see these characteristics in a man. They find it more attractive. They find it comforting. They find it someone that they actually would want to start a family with, get married to. And it's in our subconscious because God built it into us to hunger and thirst and desire these things. And this is why when God created Adam and Eve, He said, guess what? It's not good that you're alone, that you're apart. And He brought them together. And that was always His intentional design, because only in togetherness do we begin to grasp a hold of God's design for humanity, and His character and nature is only understood when the two halves come together. But the problem is, right now, the most confusion, I think, I don't know, any time, but I haven't lived through all times, but especially compared to when I was younger, at least, even if they weren't accurate, we had back in the 70s and 80s, these like images of macho men. I mean, they don't allow you to have this on the billboards anymore, but there was guys smoking cigars, drinking, hard liquor, and that was like the cowboy, We had all that now. Oh no, there's going to be too much. I'm not saying that's necessarily a bad thing, but what I'm saying is, at least even if it was wrong, there was some very specific identity of what a macho guy was, or what you were supposed to be, a little bit strong and silent. Or you go back and watch the black and white, movies where men were men and women were women. I don't know what that means, but that's what it was. But now it's like, I don't know, And this whole thing about role reversal, and there's nothing wrong with some of those things because we need to learn how to adapt and adjust. But somewhere in that mix, we've lost the core kernel of what it means. Because definitely there's two genders. Definitely God created us male and female. And in one message, I can't cover the whole thing, and this is one of the things that's really deep upon my heart, because when I talk with young men nowadays, especially outside the church, but even within the church, there's a lot of confusion. And here's the problem with having a whole generation or a couple of generations of confused men. They create problems. They create problems. They create broken relationships, broken families. They end up having children outside of the institution of marriage. They don't stick around, they take off. They flip from one relationship, one job, one place to another. They never get established because they're always longing for, hungering for something, and they never find it, and they never set. And so here we have this, it's an older pastor to a younger pastor in 1 Timothy, but I think his advice is very solid, especially for Christians, but for men in general. He says something very interesting. He says, look, all these guys out there who are claiming to be pastors and leaders, they're doing all these things, and what he basically says in 1 Timothy is they're doing it out of their own selfish desire in order to self-gratify, lift themselves up, feel good about themselves, gather a bigger gathering, make money, whatever it might be, for their own benefit. But you, it's going to be different. You, as a man of God, you have to flee those self-serving things. Pursuing wealth for wealth's sake. Pursuing doctrinal superiority or saying, my theology is right, your theology is wrong. I know better than you. I've heard that so many times from a lot of guys who think that's the only way, by being dominant, by never being wrong, that they can be a manly man. And then he says, pursue righteousness, godliness, faith, love, steadfastness, and gentleness. It's a kind of an interesting mix, and we'll talk about that. And then in verse 12 he says, fight the good fight of faith, and then take hold of the eternal life to which you were called and about which you made the good confession in the presence of many witnesses. Now, if you were just to read that in the Bible, many of you, myself included, if we don't really look deeply into it, we'll just read it in passages and law. It's a very spiritual language. It's for pastors, it's for young pastors, how to become a better pastor and what you're supposed to do. And that's geared for those spiritual men and spiritual leaders. Well, every Christian believer who is a father or a husband, you're a spiritual leader by default. And even if you're not a father or a husband, as you go up, there's people that are always younger than you, that are less mature in the faith, that you're supposed to be an example for. Not the Christ figure, but what you're supposed to say is like what Paul says, follow me as I try to follow Christ. That's really what it's about. And in this passage, what we find are, I just want to break it down into 4 things. And literally it's 3 things, but I want to kind of break down the third one into 2 pieces. The first thing that I want to point out to you is that it's not only unique to men, it's true about women as well. All these things that Paul says to Timothy can be said to women as well, but it's especially true of men. It's something that we need to possess more of. And it's a character that we want to possess more of, and something that comes a little bit more naturally to us and that we need to do. And the first thing that I'll put out to you is this. And here's the kicker, because in the world they don't quite understand this. But the first thing that Paul is encouraging Timothy to do is be a servant leader. And I don't know if you guys have heard that phrase at all, but it's been around in Christian circles for a while now. Business circles use it now. Maybe not using servant leader, but they use that, the leader that lifts up the workers, the ones below. He's not just, lording it over them. He's not the CEO, the king, the boss in charge of everything, but rather he's the one that comes alongside and lifts up the whole company. And they talk about it maybe in the business and the secular world as an upside down pyramid. It's this way now. And I think that literally is coming from the teaching of God and the Word of God. And because it's true, empirically, people discover this truth. Because it works. What does spiritual servant leadership look like? It's different than the worldly sense because we actually have a model and we actually empower the Spirit of God to do it. But I think even non-Christians can do this as well. See, I think the caricature in our modern day is that to be strong as a man, you have to never cry, never let your emotions out. You have to always, just be like a steady rock. And some aspects of that are true, but in reality, that's not what the Bible ever calls for. It's okay to let your emotions be real. It's okay to feel those emotions. It's okay to cry. It's okay to break down in some ways, but there is a strength that needs to be there because of your conviction. What a man has to have is conviction. I tell this to my girls, but I tell it to a lot of the younger folks too. I was speaking with some young guys at the basketball court. I was playing basketball one of the days a little while ago, and obviously the sermon was on my mind, but man, there's so many young guys out there, they're out there playing basketball, and they're completely lost. And there's this one young man, I don't know why, but he always asks me questions. Maybe I'm like a father figure. I mean, he's like in his mid-20s. And he always asks me questions, and we get some deep conversations. Cool. And I know he's not a Christian, and trying to hopefully lead him that way, but he asked me a question which is kind of out of the blue, and I don't know why he asked me, because I don't, He says, James, how do you get a six-pack? I'm like, I don't have one. What are you asking? Go buy a six-pack. And he's a slender guy, but he's just not very muscular. He's really tall. And we're talking about, why ask me? He goes, well, you're older. You seem like you're in pretty good shape. Did you have one when you were younger? I'm like, okay, when I was younger, And we were talking about, and I said, why are you asking that? And then his friend teasingly says, because he wants a girlfriend. And I said, okay, wait, hold on. So that question was about how to get in better shape so you can attract a girl. What are you going to do? Walk around with your six-pack? Well, I don't get this. And so we started talking about it, and it was really funny. And what I realized is what I said to him, and maybe this is my own misconception, I said, honestly, women like guys that are in relatively good shape, but they don't go like, oh my gosh, this is one of my must-have lists. He must have a six-pack. I have to inspect that washboard out before I will even go on a date with him. Otherwise, a lot of guys here wouldn't be married, right? That's the problem, right? And I said, women are not like men. I'm sorry. There's just a biological difference. And so we started talking. And what I realized is there's a lot of young men that are acting and living out based on assumptions that are just, I don't know where they're getting them from. I'm sure there's some women that are like that. I don't know. I'm not in that generation anymore. But the problem is confused men cause problems, and they end up pursuing things in their life that are not satisfying, that are superficial. Unless they have a clear conviction of something that they're willing to die for. And what I told him kind of moved the track away from that, and I said, you know what? Be as healthy a person as you can, spiritually, emotionally, physically. That's what's important. But instead of trying to pursue a girl or find a girl, be a person who has a passion and a conviction, things that you're willing to pour your life into, things that you're willing to die for. And I guarantee the right one will come. I didn't say it quite that eloquently. We talked around it. I wish, but literally that's what I was talking to him. And I would say that to all the single guys here. The problem sometimes is that in looking around for a girl or looking around for a guy, all it shows is that you're desperate. That's what it shows. But instead, when you are conviction and passionate about something and you're pursuing it, people are impressed by that. That's why anybody with any modicum of success, hard work, where they achieve something, it's not about necessarily, hopefully, not just about money or fame or power that they've achieved, but hopefully there's something underlying that you see this character, this innate, hard-working aspect that's attractive. What woman wants a man who has no direction, no vision, no passion, no conviction? I'm telling you, that is so important. And that's where your leadership stems from. That's where that will come out. And in order to be a godly man, you have to have that kind of strength of conviction. That's why Paul says to Timothy, pursue righteousness. The only way to pursue righteousness is you have to know what righteousness is and you have to know what unrighteousness is. You have to have a definition of knowing what that is. The only way to be godly and pursue godliness is you have to know what ungodliness is. And you have to make a decision in your life and say, I am going to go away from that and I'm going to pursue something. You can't just be, I'll try to be good. That's not pursuing anything. If you have a goal in your life and it's like, I'm going to try to make more money. I'm going to try to study harder. And then you have no pursuit, no plan, no goal, no passion, no reason why you're doing it, I guarantee you, you will fail eventually. It will not happen. It will not occur. And so Paul's giving Timothy amazing advice. He says, what's your conviction? Make sure you know what you believe in, what you're willing to lay down your life for. And then when you have that, then after you have that conviction, that strong leadership, now you can go and serve. And then he says you can be what? You can have love, steadfastness, and gentleness. You cannot be gentle without conviction, because all you're going to be then is wishy-washy. You're going to have no directions. You go, oh, I'm going to go over here. Oh, I'm going to go over here. Oh, yeah, you think that's right? Oh. I've met too many young men that you just talk to them a little bit and you can just change their direction or what they think. Oh, that sounds good. Oh, that sounds good. Oh, that sounds good. And this is why some of them can't figure out if the woman that they're with or the girl that they're dating is someone to pursue for marriage or what job they want, or what major, what career. They're all over the map. And I'm not saying that once you have biblical convictions, all the things are going to just all of a sudden fall into place. But it will tell you something very important. What to say no to. That's the beauty. You already know, hey, these are all no's. Now, God's giving you some options. That's what conviction is. See, I have some convictions about managing my money. I have some convictions about raising children. And so there's certain things, even if my kids beg me, I say, no, I'm not buying you that. We're not doing that with our money. Nope, you're not going to do that because I don't care if every child in the world is doing it. You're not doing it because I have certain kind of convictions. I don't say it that rudely, but I just say it, and you know what my convictions are? And they go, Dad, I know you're going to say no, but I'm going to ask anyway. I go, then why are you asking anyway, you know? Let's make this conversation short, you know, that kind of thing. It says we can do it in a gentle way. When I'm firm in my convictions and I know I'm not going to sway, then I can be gentle. Say, no, honey, we're not doing that. No, sorry, but we're not doing that. See, a lot of times kids hear sorry from parents as, oh, I've almost gotten them broken. Trust me, I've been broken a lot. But when you're in your conviction, you can be gentle and soft-spoken, but they know that's not going to change. That's the first major thing that I want to know. But then Paul says something interesting, and this is the part that I like. He says, fight the good fight of the faith. What does that mean? I don't know. For guys, something stirs us because we're like, oh, fight? I am not a violent person. I haven't been in a fight since like middle school or something like that. I mean, there's times when I got mad at people, but never physical violence. I don't know if I could, if I had to. I'm not sure. But when it says fight the good fight of faith, there's something about it, at least for me. I know it's not true equally for all men, but we somehow like competition. We like, I don't know, I could watch some of these things that are like, oh, you know, and this is why all the action adventure movies that guys like is always about fighting, weapons with fists, with knives, swords, and we're like, oh, it's gory, but we still go watch them. You know, we still go through all of that. I don't think it's so much about the gore, because it's too much gore. I don't like watching all that, but there's something about a man fighting, standing up against odds because of conviction. Usually that's what's important to me. If it's just, you know, I don't know, just fighting, I just kind of, it loses for your family. I mean, even if you look at all those blockbusters, it's always the guy that reluctantly has to go save his family. He doesn't want to fight, but even though he's been trained for all these years and he's got the abilities, but he doesn't want to fight, but they force him to. There's an aspect where it says, fight the good fight of faith, where Paul is telling Timothy, there's times when as a servant leader, you're going to have to come, and there's going to be some fight. So what does it mean? I wish I had a chance to just expand on this a lot, but let me just tell you a couple of quick things that I want you to know about fighting the good fight of faith. The predominant aspect of our faith, a fight of faith, is not so much in the attack offensive, but in the protecting and defending. If you go later on to Ephesians 6, they have this whole armor about, like this Roman legion soldier kind of thing. And one of the things that they have is what? The shield of faith. What is a shield? I know if you have to watch Gladiator, he uses it as an offensive weapon, but it's supposed to be a defensive weapon. And the Bible even says that when the enemy shoots fiery darts, but here's the thing, it's not just to protect you. As a father, as a husband, as a man, you're supposed to protect any of those among your family, your friends that you need to help protect. There's this kind of responsibility. I've mentioned this before, but if someone breaks into your house and you're in the bedroom, you don't say, honey, the husband doesn't say to the wife, honey, here's the bat, go downstairs and check it out. I don't care unless she's, Ronda Rousey or some woman like stud, fighter or whatever, but the husband is supposed to go, why? It's not a sexist thing. Usually he's bigger, usually he's stronger. Usually he's more expendable, all these things. But that's what's supposed to happen. And honestly, for the guy, this is why, that kind of romantic thing always, like when you're on a date with, the girl and it's cold, you always prepare a jacket and you have that. And, all these kind of things are supposed to happen. You're supposed to, and it's not because she's weaker or all those things, but there's an innate desire and an innate built-in thing where we are supposed to be the first line of defense. Along with the role of, quote unquote, sometimes the head of the household or whatnot, you're supposed to be the one that is on the front lines. I remember in sociology class, many years ago in college, I was watching this, and one of the professors were talking about how in certain backward civilizations, the man was up here, and then the women and children were all back here, right? And then she did a little twist, because I thought she was going to just talk about, how, in those backwards civilizations, the man is first, and this is why it's a patriarchal. But she said, and there's a very important reason why. Because if they're attacked, if an animal jumps out, he defends the family who's a few feet behind, and is able to fend them off without worrying about his family. Now, the truly depraved ones, they put the wife first and the husband goes behind. That would be messed up, right? But that's what it is. We're more equipped. But I don't mean it in just a purely this way, but there's an aspect in which spiritually and emotionally and physically in all these ways, one of the things that we want to do and we should desire to do is to be a defending protector. To fight. To lay down. This is why, to me, when Jesus Christ dies on the cross, that's the ultimate defender, protector role that we see. And that carries over to the next part. What Paul says after all of this is he says this, and I know I'm taking more out of 1 Timothy, but I'm bringing all the New Testament back into it. It says, take hold of the eternal life to which you were called, through the sacrifice of Christ, obviously, and about which you made the good confession in the presence of many witnesses. That last part is saying what? Grab a hold of and don't let go about the eternal life, the salvation that you have. How did you get that salvation? Because Jesus Christ died, because of his sacrificial love. And now it's created a community of witnesses for you to be in relationship with. And you're supposed to love one another sacrificially and be in community that way. And so the last part is sacrificial love. But the two aspects of it that I have is there's this part where there's this love, but there's also this part where there's this initiator of relationship. And I only separate it out because sometimes I think we get a little bit confused, because sometimes we're really good at the emotion of love or the act of love, but we're not good at the act of friendship. I've seen a lot of people who love their children or love their parents or love their wife, love their husband, but aren't a good friend. They don't know how to have the relational bridge built. And Jesus Christ is amazing. He says, I am your Lord and Master, I am your God, but now I no longer call you servants. I call you friends. I don't know if that sinks in. It took me a long time for that to sink in, but I'm friends with God of the universe, the God of the universe. He's my King and my Master and my Lord and my friend. And the reason why he says that, I think, is He doesn't want us just to be doting, oh God, you're so great, and just, that's part of it. Because if you come into the presence of God in heaven, if you ever catch a glimpse of God, there's no way you can't help but worship and adore Him. It's the natural response of your soul, your spirit, to being in His presence. You'd be just in awe of Him. And yet God calls us to this level of equality in terms of relationship that's profound. And here's the thing, especially for men, I want to tell you two things. Number one, we need to learn how to love, and we need to learn how to be friends. The place where we can learn how to love really in a great way, of course with our friends, but especially those of us who are married and have children, with their spouses. In Ephesians 5:25, it says, love your wives just as Christ loved the church and gave Himself up for her. What did Jesus do? He died for the church. And I think one of the greatest joys that we can learn to have as men is to sacrifice for our wives and sacrifice for our children. And it comes out in very mundane, simple ways. You go to the places that she wants to go to. I mean, that doesn't mean you do only what she wants. I'm not saying that. But there's certain things that you do not because you want to do them, but because you love the person that you're doing it with. There's a ton of stuff I don't want to do with two groups. Ellie's still so into dolls, and when we go doll shopping, here's our agreement. Our agreement is I'll take her to doll shopping, and toy shopping, and still does all of that, and I'm waiting for the day when we get rid of all of it and kind of matures and moves on. But I always set a time. I say, I love you, but here's the time limit that you have. Because and I don't say anything. I don't say hurry up. I don't say. I just say, I only have 10 more minutes. And she and I have our understanding, so we don't get into arguments about it. So if you ever go shopping with your wife, here's the problem I found with a lot of it, just a practical piece of advice, or girlfriend, or mom, or sister. For women, not all, but a lot, shopping is just shopping. There's just no need to be any time limit. But for guys, there's a basketball game only at 5. There's something else I want to do, or a little later on. And so if you can just agree ahead of time, for 1 hour, for 2 hours, but to the minute, to the second, I am completely yours, because there's an end to it. This is why we like sporting events so much, guys. We don't like, I don't like the endless soap operas, dramas that go on and on. I like it. There's a beginning and there's a conclusion. Someone lost, someone won, end of story. Or movie. I like movies. Someone died, someone lived, whatever. Happy ending, sad ending, but it's over. I don't like sequels. The third, whatever. They keep drawing it on, dragging it on. I'm sure the directors are doing it for the money, but I don't like that. But when we begin to learn how to sacrifice and just give up of ourselves, guess what happens? We begin to realize, oh wow, I'm putting to death the selfishness that's inside of me. And some of those things are so trivial. And then it opens up a huge door. You've now learned the beginning foundational step in initiating friendships. One of the things that I think for guys, I think it's kind of overly stated. The joke is guys can kind of meet in high school, be best buds in high school, not see each other for 30 years, go to a reunion, and become best buds again. It's somewhat true, I think. But it's not really, that best bud relationship is not real. You just have an affinity for them. There's nothing there. And the one thing I want to challenge, especially for the men, is this. It takes initiative and consistency to maintain lifelong relationships. But it's so important for us to do. And I especially want to encourage the younger men, do not despise those early young relationships, especially with other Christian brothers. Treat it like a lifelong brotherhood that you cannot escape from this person, and there's a reason why God brought you together, if at all possible. It doesn't mean you have to have hundreds of brothers and friends like that, but just a handful that you're tied to, that you're linked to, that you check in on. And I'm so thankful that I learned this lesson. I'm sorry I learned it later, but I have a few that I just, and it may not be a lot, but that's all you need. And the problem is too many men they get so caught up in their marriage and raising their kids that they end up shutting all that part down, and they've learned sacrificial love, but they're devoid of learning about friendships. And so women, we need to free them to go and do that. Not to just go and play with toys, but to develop deep, meaningful relationships. Because what happens? They're more available for the wife, and they're more available for the children. And they know how, when the children grow up, to have a mentor-friendship relationship with them as well as a father relationship. All of this stuff, I wish I could say, I've done it, it's doable, and I'm really good at it, and let me tell you, no. I'm struggling with it as a sermon for me as much as it is for you, but when you grasp a hold of all of that, we're all imperfect, living in an imperfect world, but at least there's some goals and some hopes that we strive for, and as we do that, guess what? I really believe that if men would take some initiative in these areas, we're going to have such a transformation. So much healthier families, so much healthier communities and churches. Just so many blessings that come out, and there's an aspect. And I just want to encourage all of us this morning. Let's celebrate the fathers. Let's celebrate the men. And let's encourage them. Let's continue to support them, fail as they might. And I believe that God will work in them and us. I just want to encourage them. Let's come to that. Father, there's so many things that we need to kind of get set in our world. One of the things that I pray that we would help is to raise up a generation of young men that have a passion to bless others, to serve others, who have conviction, who stand up for the weak, for the poor, for those that cannot defend themselves.